There's a famous story my mom likes to share. One time, she was curious when I started gaming how long I would game before I realized, maybe I should stop. She put a timer on.
And I went in the room and I said, Cam, you've been playing for 15 hours. And he said, no, I just got on. Can I just finish my game? We were like, this is crazy. You're not eating, you're not sleeping, you're not moving, you're not doing anything. You're just playing video games. And I remember looking at his dad and going, oh goodness, what are we dealing with?
Joining me is Cam Adair from San Diego. He's a former video game addict.
We all know someone whose family is struggling, or we all know maybe our own kid is struggling.
So what is it about these games that hook people in, and should we be worried?
It's called Fortnite, and it has 125 million players around the world hooked.
By the age of 21, an addict for 10 years. How did it impact your life?
I was gaming 16 hours a day. I was very depressed, very anxious, dropped out of high school, never graduated.
16 hours a day?
Yes.
A mother and father are accused of starving their newborn daughter to death, all while spending endless hours playing online games. And the tragic irony, well, the point of the game is to raise a virtual baby.
This is no doubt in my mind that there's a tsunami coming, and it's already happening. I think it's a dangerous social experiment that we're playing with. I know gaming addiction isn't going anywhere, and it's only getting worse. It's an issue that we're seeing as a rising trend all over the world. And if we look at, the percentage of gamers right now, World Health has said, between 1% to 3%, there's 2.6 billion gamers worldwide. If we look at the rising trend of esports and college esports, and colleges now giving scholarships for esports, and we look at some of the ages that kids start gaming now at 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, this is a problem that is only going to continue to get worse, and I don't think we're prepared for it, and I think that we need to be doing more. Game Quitters is a peer support community for people who struggle with a video game addiction. We currently serve about 50,000 people a month in 91 countries around the world. The beautiful thing for me is just people having a space to be able to open up and be vulnerable in a way they've never been vulnerable before. We love encouraging professional support and therapy and all of that. And I also know that for the vast majority of people, especially gaming addicts, online is where they feel comfortable, and being around peers is where they feel comfortable. So my hope is that in doing so, that helps them move one step closer to living the life they want. And if that then also encourages them to seek additional support in professional therapy or so forth, then that's also a big win for us. One of my fondest memories at this rink was my dad in the summers would rent it just for the two of us to be able to play and practice and do different drills. And for me, I always knew that my dad was doing that because he cared so much about me and being successful. It was just a lot of fun to spend those moments together. During the hockey season, I was able to focus and play, and I had school and things like that. But in the summers, it was really challenging because I would just game all day long. And I just wouldn't put in the same level of effort that I probably needed to really be able to move forward in my career. And I ended up retiring when I was 18 and not pursuing it further, which for me has always been probably my biggest regret in life, actually, is not really taking hockey more seriously because it was a lot of fun. It really meant a lot to me. In my own experience, gaming wasn't much of a problem until I experienced a lot of bullying, and that bullying really led me to want to escape. And escaping into gaming was a place where I had a lot more control because the bullying I experienced in school and on my hockey teams, I had no control.
School didn't feel safe. Hockey obviously didn't feel safe because he was being bullied there, but he could play a game and it was safe. And everyone liked him. No one's judging you. You're all playing the game, and if you start winning, you're the hero on the game. Yeah, it's a long time ago, but I was just trying to remember where that was.
the place where you can see my fullest expression of myself is when I skate. Anytime I see myself on the ice or playing hockey, like that's really what I feel. I just remember being like shamed for wanting to quit the team after I had just been on a bus and being spit on for over an hour. I remember my dad picked us up and drove my friend, one of my teammates, and I home. And as soon as he dropped off my teammate, I started bawling my eyes out and uncontrollably. And my dad had no idea what was going on, but I wouldn't talk about it. And the next day I said I wasn't playing hockey anymore. And my parents, I remember being like very confused. Someone who loves hockey all of a sudden is like refusing to go. And, it wasn't until I did a TEDx talk that my parents finally even heard some of these stories. And I think, I don't really know if I even knew how to talk about them. Hockey was a very competitive outlet for me. It was a very aggressive outlet. I got to go and, it was physical contact in your face. And I love that aspect of it. I love to win, and I always played to win. Gaming was more the competitive aspect of just being the best. And it wasn't, the physical aggression, contact in the same way, but just really trying to be the best.
For me, it was about him not being able to stop and not wanting to be part of the family. When I said supper, gaming was the most important thing. He'd get really angry. No, I have to finish this. Like, it really was a compulsion at that time, and I just didn't understand it. People need to take it seriously and realize, again, it's like alcohol. I can have a glass of wine, I don't have a problem. But some people do. Some people can play video games, and it's not a problem. But there's a lot of people who do. And I think there should be the help out there that they need.
Starting today, playing excessive video games will be classified as a mental disorder. The World Health Organization is adding gaming disorder to its international classification of diseases in 2018. Health officials say excessive gaming can lead to health problems.
The World Health Organization has including gaming disorder as a disorder, and the impetus for that was really around the world. There's been a struggle with people seeking treatment.
Lots of folks say there's not enough research and that it might create moral panic and that there's not enough consensus about criteria and there's too much leaning on substance abuse criteria.
For a long time, pretty much up until almost a year ago, in the industry, they continued to say gaming addiction is not real, this is not a problem, people don't have a problem with games, games are just fun. And it's beginning to shift.
The World Health Organization takes a very careful approach to making decisions about what gets included in the classification of diseases. And so they have committees of experts from around the world generating data and research that can be used to test out the ideas about what should and should not be included.
It's helpful with this new WHO diagnosis in so much that there's media attention and there's attention and understanding around excessive behaviors.
I think it's important that parents not overreact, or family and friends not kind of overreact, and recognize that there's a big difference between intensive involvement in an activity and a disorder.
The WHO talked about where gaming needed to impair their lives in their social life or in their work life or school life, causing some sort of harm. And that's problematic.
Are you lying to people? Are you lying to yourself? Are you deceiving people around you? Are you stealing money or credit cards to be able to buy more games? You want to look at, is it affecting your relationships? You want to look at, do you find yourself experiencing withdrawal symptoms? So after you quit, do you experience cravings? Do you experience headaches? Do you experience anxiety or mood swings? Is it causing you to think about it all day long where you're at work or school and you're just constantly thinking about, how much longer before you get to go and play next? If you find yourself just playing more and more and more and kind of going through a binge cycle, those are all some different red flags that you want to look for. We're going to the McDonald's parking lot. I was pretending to have a job at Joey's Tomatoes, and I would have my dad drop me off in this parking lot. And then I didn't want him to know that I was pretending to work. So I'd get him to drop me off here, and then I'd walk across the street and go over to the restaurant.
The restaurant is where?
It's right here. I'd walk across the street and catch the bus back to my house, and then usually my parents were still at home before they went to work, so I would sneak in through my window and I'd go to sleep. And then they usually came home around 3 or 4 p.m. and I'd be waking up, and I always just told them that I got off around 1 or 2 and had a nap after work. That was definitely one of the low points. That's where it started to become much, much worse, when it became not only me being unable to hold a job, but then pretending to have jobs and deceiving my family, who have always been there for me and who always have supported me. For me to be lying to them in that way was definitely not a highlight of my life, and that began the journey to my breaking point. When I wrote the suicide note, I think what I was feeling at the time was just there was no escape, there was no getting away, and as much as gaming or smoking pot or coming here even would let me get a break, I still had to go back and feel that pain. And I just didn't feel like I could get over it. And writing the note, for me, it was hard because I was writing messages to family members and friends and wanting them to know, that I love them and that I'm sorry. And that was hard, but also knowing that for me, I was doing it because I needed to get rid of that pain. I no longer felt like I was actually safe with my own self. And that's a night where I realized I needed to ask for help. So I asked my father if he would help me find a counselor. He said yes, of course. And I started to see a counselor, and this counselor essentially gave me a choice, which was you either need to get and keep a job, or you need to go on antidepressants. And for me, I never felt like antidepressants were the answer for me. I never felt called to that. And so I got a job, and that job really gave me structure and stability.
This is a long time ago, 15 years ago. There was no information. We didn't have any help. I called counselors who said, well, just take the game away. We tried locking up the modem. We didn't realize the addictiveness of it for him. He really couldn't stop. It's like any other addiction, really, is all I can say. If you've got a kid that's got an alcohol problem or a drug problem, you're isolated. Who do you talk to about it? How do you talk to someone else and say, my kid won't leave their room? People look at you and go, what? Unplug it, take it away. They don't get the desperation that as a parent you feel. You're really sad, you're really lonely. And sometimes the easiest thing is not to leave the house, because then you don't have to talk to anybody about it.
Initially, when I shared my story, I think I had an intuition that there were going to be a lot of people out there who resonated, and there was just an energy I felt around it. But to see where it is today and to see the impact it's having is always really special. For over 10 years, I was addicted to playing video games. This addiction affected many areas of my life, including being a major influence in my decision to drop out of high school at the age of 15. What if right now you're stuck at home playing video games and you want to stop and don't know how? Imagine for a second how this makes you feel. Do you feel a sense of pain? What about feelings of guilt? Shame? Do you feel confident, anxious, depressed? One of the worst things I think a parent can say to a gamer is, why do you play these games? Those aren't your real friends anyways. And I have compassion for parents. I understand where you're coming from. And what that gamer hears is that you don't understand their world and who they really are and what's actually meaningful to them. And those are their real relationships. And they might be their only relationships. And those are the people who they're having very open and honest conversations with. And it's where they feel like they belong. And if you really want to dive into it, gaming is where it's their safe community. It's their sense of tribe. And when you're saying that those aren't their real friends, you're actually creating a disconnect. You're creating a lot of stigma around between gamers and society, and that's a huge part of the problem, is that for a gamer to want to quit gaming is for him to actually make a decision to go back to a society that has shamed him for being a gamer in the first place.
We know that young people are involved, overly involved with both, of course, gaming, but also gambling. And so they are at particular risk of developing a dependency or an over-involvement with the activities.
This Philippine macaque is receiving banana pellets on a variable ratio schedule. The number of responses on which reinforcement depends varies, but on the average, every 100th response is reinforced. Variable ratio reinforcement produces a very high and a very stable rate of response.
One common feature between gaming and other activities like gambling is that there is intermittent reinforcement. So there are lots of rewards, but the rewards are unpredictable. And people then pursue the rewards in a very constant type of fashion.
A loot box is something where you're able to pay some money to be able to have the potential for a certain reward or a different level of reward within a game. They could maybe give you a boost to your character or give you a different item, but it's a random reward. There's a percentage chance that you would be able to get a really good item. And that's very similar to gambling design.
I mean, this is a concept that we've known since the 1950s when Skinner outlined the very basic learning processes. And Skinner was able to show in animals, including human animals, but also rats and in pigeons, that behavior that is reinforced on an intermittent schedule, so in an unpredictable way, is learned in a more strong way. So it's much more resistant to extinction. So it takes longer for a person to stop the behavior when the reinforcement ends.
When you're gaming and you're experiencing, you're getting, a new score or you're doing something in a game, you're actually dopamine is being released in your brain, and that's like a pleasure kind of experience in your brain, and that actually overexposure to that can actually have structural changes that happen to your brain, and there's three main ones. The first is numbed pleasure response, which means that everyday activities no longer really satisfy you. The second is hyperreactivity to gaming, which means that gaming is really exciting and everything else is boring in comparison. And the third is willpower erosion, which means that even if you wanted to quit, you wouldn't have the willpower to do it anyways. It's a point now where there's a responsibility by game designers to really look at what are their ethics and why are they designing the games they are, and looking beyond just we're trying to justify everything as we're trying to make games more fun.
And recently, actually, former alumni of the Silicon Valley have started to sort of post warnings about the things that they've developed and the social media platforms that they developed, saying, these platforms that we've developed have been made and they're harmful, and now they're feeling some regret about that.
That thought process was all about how do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible. And that means that we need to sort of give you a little dopamine hit every once in a while because someone liked or commented on a photo or a post or whatever. And that's going to get you to contribute more content, and that's going to get you, more likes and comments. I mean, it's a social validation feedback loop that it's like it's exactly the kind of thing that a hacker like myself would come up with, because you're exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology.
It's very clear that they're using these well-established principles in designing games. And in fact, games are often described in terms of how immersive and addictive they are. I mean, that's an advertising feature. And, it's a reason that people like to play them. It's a nice way to lose yourself and, have a good time immersed in the experience.
My moms and I were talking about camps, like summer camps, when the summer first started, and we found this one, and I was just like, okay, I'll try it. seems like a really cool camp. And then I noticed that it was also helping with gaming addiction, which is something that I also struggle with. When my parents got divorced and I turned to gaming, gaming led to depression because I just spend my days sitting in a room with a TV, blinds shut, everything. The games had just been a part of my life at that point. It's like having a dog all your life and then all of a sudden you don't have a dog anymore. It's just something that like has stuck with me and has been a part of me through hard times and even now. I didn't notice it at first, but when my parents started talking to me about it, I was like, yeah, I definitely have an issue with this.
Campers are ages 10 through 17 who spend way too much time, we call it an unhealthy amount of time on screens, either computer screens, handheld smartphones, or video game consoles, getting lost in social media and video games rather than enjoying time in the real world.
Retreat. Oh, wait, wrong one.
It has to stay. Yeah, there you go. Are you sure you want to do that?
Nope.
Yeah, there you go. What's been your favorite thing about camp so far?
I've been enjoying all of it.
Were you nervous coming to camp?
A little bit, yeah.
What were you nervous about?
Just like how many friends I would make, stuff like that.
How do you feel not being on technology?
Different, but at the same time, more peaceful. Or anything like that.
Do you find that you're not thinking about games as much? Like when you're at home, you're always thinking about like when you get to play and...
Yeah.
A lot of the kids that we work with, we know kind of stop their social development when they start gaming or getting lost in the social world of online communities. A lot of what we do is life skills based. We do everything from what we call room responsibilities, which is cleaning their rooms and making their beds and making sure they've showered and brushed their teeth, to doing their own laundry and learning how to cook. So everything they'll need to survive in the real world beyond using a handheld device or being on a video game. Should I look in the closet? Would I be afraid to look in the closset?
Go ahead.
How's the dirty clothes in the hamper?
It's all organized.
Whoa! All right. I apologize for ever suspecting anything different. I've been a camp director for over 30 years, largely in nonprofit and church and scouting and things like that. And the program here is a little bit different because it's on a college campus. There's a strong life skill component about getting ready to move out of mom's house. And Summerland is also a clinical program. This is the only summer camp I've ever worked at where I have a PhD on staff and clinical interns and PhD candidates as part of the staff. 8 new campers for me on Saturday. 2 girls and 6 boys. So camper 1, 15-year-old boy, gaming all the time. Grades steadily dropping. This is one of the ones with peanut allergies.
Okay. We may take some of that into account when we're assigning rooms.
Yeah, because everyone should have a good experience. I like that they're all roommates, but I also don't want it to be a source of new anxiety.
Yeah. Right. We have a therapeutic rotation where we do group therapy and talk about kind of some psychoeducational materials that we have for them to like explore what video game addiction is all about.
When we first get here, we talk about why we were sent here, how we can change, and today I made like a bucket list in therapy, and it was like establish a better video game limit, snorkel all across the world, travel to the Netherlands, and have a better love for myself and get rid of my gaming addiction.
Today we are making the ultimate breakfast. It is pancakes, eggs, and bacon. Does everyone like pancakes? We're okay with that? It's not a problem?
We're not talking to campers about, no more use of technology in the future, because that would be very impractical. Technology is in our lives and seems to be here to stay. So it's more about getting those urges under control when they're using technology, and understanding what triggers might be in their life to tempt them to get back on a game or get back on certain social media platform.
These games are created and designed to keep people engaged. And so when we diagnose people and put the problem internal to the person, we're sort of not acknowledging all of the other things that could be influencing the behavior and the excessivity.
Do you guys remember who this guy is?
Yes.
Yeah. Who remembers his name?
Cam.
Cam, that's right. So let's give it up for Mr. Cam Adair.
I'm happy to take questions about gaming or social media or any of the work that I do, but I just want you to know that this comes from my own personal experience and also working with people all over the world about it.
Originally, when I first started getting really into video games, it was more out of escapism, but now at this point it's kind of I don't do anything else, and that's the easiest thing to access.
So let me explain a little bit about what happens with games. So we know from research that escapism is probably the biggest reason why people play. I believe there are 4 different reasons, human needs that we have of why we play games. So it's escape, which is temporary escape, social connection, measurable progress, and a sense of purpose. You can think of that like a sense of certainty. In a game, you always know what to do next, right? You wake up and you're like, okay, I have to, go try to get to this new level, or I need to go complete this mission, or I need to go beat this boss. It's okay to get an escape. It's okay to get a break from stress from the day. The problem is when you turn the game off and your life is in the same place and you haven't done anything about it, and then you're like, okay, well, that doesn't feel good, so I'm going to go back to the game. And that's a cycle where you're avoiding your problems, escaping into them, and they only get worse over time.
One of the popular approaches to helping people overcome addictions is to focus on motivation. So in addition to teaching people skills about how to cope differently and live their lives differently, it's really helping the person sharpen their understanding of why they would want to do that, and really getting them to reflect and think about how it's affecting their lives and how they would like their lives to be better. So that's referred to as motivational interviewing, and it's becoming a very central part of how we treat addictions.
So I really felt this sense of what would happen if I actually dedicated myself to my life, and what if I really tried to realize my potential and really go for it? What are my dreams, and what if I actually take all this energy I'm putting into gaming and put it into achieving goals? And I just realized that in order to do that, I had to quit gaming. Because if I didn't quit gaming, I would just continue to game and game and game and never actually try to do anything else. Surfing is meditation. When I'm in the water, I feel very connected. I feel very present. And gaming gave me a very similar feeling, where in that moment I was not able to think of anything else, but when I come out of surfing, I'm inspired about life. When I finish gaming, I either just want to go play more, or I feel like a zombie and I want to sleep and then wake up and game some more.
Often you'll hear, deal with your addiction first and then we'll deal with the depression, or we'll deal with the depression and the addiction will go away. They're usually hand in hand, and there's lots of different sort of mental health associations and groups that are trying to create treatment modalities that are addressing both at the same time. From the perspective I take, they are the same thing. When you're dealing with one, you're dealing with another. You're helping folks develop better ways of living, better practices that are more healthy and helpful. There's not a one-size-fits-all model. What works for one family is not going to work for another family, and what works for one child won't work for another child.
For too long, the conversation around this issue has been, is gaming good or bad? And completely lost in that debate are people who are coming forward saying, I need help. And I think that we need to improve the conversation around this subject and be able to recognize that there are people all over the world saying, I need help. And our answer as a society should be, okay, how can we help?